Incredible scenes outside Newcastle local court. Members of the Senegalese community rallying over the loss of a baby girl and for the woman accused of killing her, some overcome by emotion.
Everyone's supporting her. Everyone knows that she was going through a very difficult time, and everyone's aware of her mental and psychological conditions.
Last Friday, the 26-year-old was charged with murdering her 6-week-old daughter at a home in Wallsend, something that sent shockwaves through the community. Today, she appeared via audio-visual link from Sydney's Silverwater Jail. Not capable of speaking English, she was accompanied by a translator. Her defence lawyer, Zemarai Katiz, was unsuccessful in an attempt to have his client's name suppressed. Instead, Magistrate Robert Stone made an order that the woman be provided protective custody, adding he has no evidence that she's been threatened and that this is no different to any other sad murder allegation involving a child. Throughout the hearing, the woman sat with her head in her hands, but before it was over, she had to be taken away for medical assistance. She was feeling faint and her eyes were rolling in the back of her head. By the end, there wasn't a dry eye among her supporters. Mr. Katiz urged people to exercise compassion and think before jumping to any conclusions.
That is correct. She wasn't well at all, and I would ask the community to take that into account. And there's more to the story than what is contained in the fact sheet.
The matter was adjourned to August 17. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
The Knights reached rock bottom before seeing change. Now they're hunting a visionary to take them to the promised land.
Let's look 12 months down the track.
Yes.
Where do you want to see this football club?
I want to see us in the top 8, and I want to see us within 3 years to be heading towards the top 4, and then within a 5-year period to be premiers again. That has to be our aim.
The club is in the midst of an identity crisis, with critics claiming players aren't adhering to the values past success was forged on. McGuigan believes change throughout the organisation needs to be driven by a new head coach.
We have got to revamp it all from the top. We can't start halfway up. We've got to start at the top and work our way down.
Rick Stone's sacking was swift. It happened in less than 24 hours. The board opting against a stay of execution, a decision which has also been criticised.
Had we have waited any longer for the reformation, then maybe we'd have gone a bit limply into next season.
Others have pointed the finger at the CEO.
Matthew Gidley is the problem at Newcastle. He had no experience, but he was seen as a Newcastle boy, so he was put in a job that he was not trained to do.
He is a great leader and someone who I would stick by 100%. He's the CEO, he's led the revolution, he's shown leadership, and he's done it all before, and so I'm absolutely linked to his leadership, so too is the board.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
The Premier spruiked part of Newcastle's new look public transport system earlier this week. Now the City Council and Urban Growth are looking to complement it, and they want the locals to help.
This consultation, I'm hoping, will be very broad and very in-depth with the community. We're going to have a youth summit. We're having a 2-day community workshop. There's going to be 800 telephone intercept surveys. There's going to be social media feedback.
The two bodies will then look to use all that to look at infrastructure to stimulate activity, jobs, development and investment in the city. Meanwhile, the council voted last night on whether to accept a sizable developer contribution if the contentious T4 coal loader gets over the line. The majority of councillors last night agreed to the $12 million offer put forward by the Port Waratah Coal Services. In saying that, the T4 project is still being assessed by the State's Planning Assessment Commission. Normally, council gets 1% levy on developments, and state planners decided a contribution of $524,000 was adequate for the $5 billion project.
When you get an $11.5 million increase, I think at this point in time it's probably as good as we'll get.
Council also voted overnight to create a rainbow pedestrian crossing at Hamilton, a decision that's causing angst with some local business owners.
When the council needs to put a motion forward, they need to consult businesses before they put a motion forward.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
So public land is now going to be rezoned residential if it's approved by state government. It's against what the community wants to see happening, and the council is not listening.
Arriving with a police escort, Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete was met with handshakes and smiles. The East African leader spent the morning at City Hall, where in front of a carefully selected crowd, he became the first head of state to receive an honorary doctorate of laws from Newcastle University, recognising the education and humanitarian reforms he's instituted in his own country.
Through me, this great university has recognised our collective efforts to transform our country and improve the quality of our lives, from underdevelopment to prosperity.
There was time for a taste of Tanzanian culture. And a few photos before the president was whisked away to his next engagement. It's part of a 4-day tour of Australia, and while it's a flying visit, the changes he's led in his home country will leave a lasting legacy.
But now, back home in the rural area, 40 kilometers from the city center, we have electricity everywhere. We have the roads connected with the tarmac roads. But more importantly, people are able to speak, the freedom of expression.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
It's a fantastic competition to, obviously, for the A-League clubs to break up what is a long pre-season, and it gives us something really, great to look forward to. And obviously, the goal is that is a competition that we want to win. The breakers were great in getting out in the community, and if we can carry on, I guess, the baton and get around to the northern New South Wales football area, then hopefully we can raise that bar and engage youngsters to want to be future Jets.
She's already won Paralympic and Commonwealth Games gold. Now the Hunters' Madison Elliott has added more accolades to her list. In Glasgow, she finished with 7 medals, as well as a world record in the 100 freestyle.
I didn't think that I'd break it this year. I was hoping to try and save it for Rio next year, but it's a big international competition. Got to try and break world records.
Currently enjoying a training break, the teenager admits her swimming career is cruising along nicely. It's her career outside the pool she's not quite sure about.
It's good to have a little bit of a break and just get out of the pool for a little bit and start studying on homework, which I don't really want to do yet.
Maddie's coach says she's displayed a new level of commitment recently, indicating there's still plenty of room for improvement.
I've shielded her from the heavy workload, and now as she gets older and stronger, she can handle a bit more work. So, the sky's the limit.
Once she returns to the pool, her focus will be the trials for Rio 2016 to be held in April. If she qualifies, it will be her second Paralympics. Her goal is 5.
I have achieved a lot, but there is still more to achieve. I can hopefully win more gold medals and maybe break more world records.
It's just another circuit to me. I mean, yeah, we got a podium there, but got to try and back it up and do it all over again. I'm looking forward to the challenge. Well, making gains across the weekend. Saturday we ended up 8th, which we were really happy with. And then Sunday we were starting 8th and we'd made a huge gain with the car and never really got to see the potential of the car in the race.
Imagine that piece of rubbish being picked up by an animal and then causing that animal to die.
It's a part of Maitland many hope won't come to a grinding halt once work is complete. The levee project is a month away from completion, but just reopening the mall isn't enough as far as Councillor Philip Penfold is concerned.
Once the levee is complete, we're going to see more businesses open up that really make quite the nighttime economy, quite the economy that provides for cafes and restaurants and eateries.
He wants to see council encourage the creation of a coffee precinct similar to those in Newcastle.
The dining precinct, perhaps the Beaumont Street, the Derby Street of Maitland.
James Carter has been a coffee roaster for 20 years and supplies 15 cafes in the Hunter Valley. He says he's already seen change in local tastes.
The consumer's actually getting more fussy. They're actually providing feedback to the cafes. Knowledge is part of it. You can't just put some beans together and drink it. You've got to know how those flavours interact with each other.
Next month, Maitland's annual Aroma Festival will take place, and it's the chance for local cafes to showcase their talents.
To show everybody what we do, so it's quite important. Like, we're passionate about coffee, passionate about connecting with the community.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Highlighting those unique features of culture, the industrial, the recreational, and looking at, I guess, Walco as a restorative place in terms of well-being.
It takes a special kind of person to risk their own life to save another, but it's a challenge Troy Ham has risen to more than once.
Like I tell everyone, we're just doing our job, and the skills that we've got and the equipment that we've got is to a very high standard, so you just got to back yourself and do the best you can.
Early last year, the lifeguard received a call from police saying 4 teenage boys were stuck in the notorious Snapper Point Sea Cave. Troy headed out on a jet ski, and despite battling big swell and strong winds, he managed to get all of them to safety.
A couple of them had some scratches on, a bit exhausted from trying to get out, and just let them know that everything's going to be all right.
A year on, he's been given a prestigious state award for his bravery and selflessness. But at the time, he was more concerned about damaging the jet ski than his own safety.
Didn't want to put the jet ski on the rocks and get a little slap on the wrist from the boss, but yeah, you get that.
Despite his modesty, Troy doesn't take such incidents lightly. This year there's already been a string of rescues at the point, and he says people need to understand the risks they take can be deadly.
There's deaths there every year just from inexperience and just not really knowing what's going on around the rocks. So just a bit more information for people that do go down there, just to be careful, just to know what you're getting yourself into.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It's weekly chores like these this Bulwara Heights man will miss when he hangs up his hat at Australia's leading agricultural training facility.
It's a big decision, but it had to happen sooner or later, and there's plenty of other things I'd like to do.
Cameron Archer has spent 4 decades at Tocal College and been principal for 27 of those. Today he announced he'll retire in September. He says he's seen plenty of changes in the industry during his time in charge, and keeping ahead of the game has been vital.
The technology changes, and unless you've got a system that's in sync with everyone else's, it's not much use to anyone. We've progressed the college. There's been enormous changes in agriculture, enormous changes in education, and we've made the most of those changes, but you can't be complacent.
The college has evolved since it opened in 1965, and it isn't just about producing farmers anymore.
The modern day farmer, and also the modern day person servicing the farmer, and all the professions that are related around farming, because there's less and less full-time farmers, but there's still a lot of support services.
The 64-year-old says he'll also miss seeing students on their biggest day of their time at Tocal.
The good times is really graduation day, and seeing the students graduate, and last weekend with the 50th anniversary, seeing students come back that hadn't seen for 30 or 40 years. It's that pride that they have in the place which I think is really important.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
It's Craig Rosie Rosevere as we've never seen him before.
It's been a long time since I've put the Leica on, back in the 80s when I was playing in metal bands, I think.
The drumsticks have been replaced by a bike, and Rosie's already clocking up the kilometres in training for the Ride for Sick Kids, which raises money for Ronald McDonald House.
I wouldn't call myself a cyclist, but I'm a cycling enthusiast. But now, in about 6 weeks' time, I'm going to be a cyclist. I'll be doing 100 Ks a day for 5 days. So I think if you racked up 500 Ks in the legs, Tash, you're going to be a cyclist.
The ride will start in Moree on September 8, travelling to Narrabri, Tamworth, Scone and Singleton before finishing in Newcastle.
It's not an easy ride, but Rosie's a bit of a surprise packet.
Ross Bingham from Ronald McDonald House should know he's done the ride every year since its inception. To date, it's raised $2.4 million, and in its 11th year, there's a big target.
We're hoping to raise about $250,000. Hopefully we'll give that a really good shake-up and maybe push $300,000. We've got quite a few plans on the go, in particular the development of a NICU family room in the new NICU development at John Hunter Children's Hospital.
Rosie's just happy to be along for the ride.
I love keeping fit and also hanging with the boys and getting out in the sun, so you can't complain when it's for a good cause.
If you want to support the journey, head to the Ride for Sick Kids website.
Nathan Ross is one of the most enthusiastic players in rugby league. That's part of the reason Danny Baderis is handing him an NRL debut against the Dragons.
It's a dream come true, and I guess it's a testament and to just continue to back yourself and even though your back's against the wall, just keep trying and dreams do come true if you do chase it.
For now, it's not clear whether he'll play fullback or wing.
I'm just happy to be a part of the team. It doesn't matter. You can throw me in the front row if you want. I'll be carting the ball up and giving the team everything I've got.
The 26-year-old's career has taken him through various clubs in Australia and Europe, as well as Lakes and Curry in the real NRL. Brought to the Knights by Rick Stone, Ross admits he thought a first-grade debut with Newcastle might never eventuate.
I had a bit of interest last year from a few other clubs, but Rick Stone being my reserve grade coach last year, I stayed loyal to him, and unfortunately he's not here and Danny's giving me my shot now.
3 days on from Stone's sacking, the players are still coming to terms with the decision.
Sometimes rugby league throws some challenges at you, and we've got to get off the canvas a bit and fight back and do a good job for the football club and the fans and Danny Badeiras.
Potential replacements continue to emerge.
We lost the coach last year in Anthony Griffin, and I think he'd be a fantastic fit down there.
No one from Newcastle's ever contacted me at all. In my opinion, they need rebuilding, so Newcastle need to decide who's the best coach for that job. If they thought that was me, I'd happily go and talk to them.
In other team news, Tarek Sims is out with a shoulder injury. He'll be replaced by Joseph Tarpany. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Kiwi international Ryan De Vries and local product Nick Calburn are fighting for a place in Scott Miller's side. Just how long they'll get to showcase their wares is still up in the air.
I guess with Ryan, he showed good application and good technical quality. Nick Calburn's a part of the squad at the moment. He's been doing very well as well, and unfortunately for him, the last 10 days he struggled with an ankle injury, so I'm conscious of that as well.
The Jets will hold an intra-club trial in Armidale tomorrow as they enter the back half of their tour. In last night's FFA Cup clash between Heidelberg United and Broadmeadow, the visitors suffered a setback pre-game with their keeper stood down over a Twitter rant aimed at Adam Goods. On the pitch, it had little effect. This rocket opened the scoring. 3 minutes later, the visitors were in again. Kane Shepherd is on the Central Coast Mariners' radar. Here's the reason why. Their third was less impressive, but ended Broadmeadow's FFA Cup dream. The Magic pulled one back in the second half and had another goal disallowed for offside.
It's not a noise you expect to hear at your average hotel. But step inside the Mercure Newcastle Airport and it's easy to forget you're right next to Williamtown RAF base.
We've triple glazed all of the windows on the airport side, and it's a very, very mild hum when there's a bank of 4 F-18s taking off. So it's quite extraordinary how well the glazing has worked.
Today, the multi-million-dollar development was officially opened. And bookings have already taken off, with the hotel preparing to check in its first guests tomorrow.
The obvious ones are the people coming on the early or the late flight, so they'll be the first logical guests. But then we're surrounded by a lot of corporate business as well, and we're looking forward to working closely with them in regards to the Strike Fighter Jet project that's happening at Williamtown.
With 95 rooms, a restaurant and bar, plus conference facilities, the accommodation is also assisting the airport's bid to get international flights off the ground.
Something that we continue to work on, and being able to talk about the hotel and the growth of this region for aviation and tourism certainly helps our case.
Work is expected to be complete on the airport's terminal expansion at the end of August. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
When you see people undergoing job losses, retrenchments, that is so important. It's the vital foundation for them to get back on their feet.
It's a vital piece of the Bathers Way project. The next 3 weeks, engineers are investigating the condition of the seawall at South Newcastle Beach.
That we want to get the Bathers Way through here, and we just need to get a handle on really just how stable the seawall is.
There'll also be a check of the cliff above the road, as well as the area adjacent to the bogey hole. The works include drilling behind and through the seawall, as well as the use of ground-penetrating radar technology.
The seawall itself is nearly 90 years old. And we don't have any records of how it was constructed. So if we want to put some new infrastructure in over the top, we really need to understand whether or not it's adequate to support that infrastructure.
Although detailed planning of Bathers Way is still in process, this section is expected to cost approximately $23 million. The Lord Mayor says it's the beginning of an important stage in Newcastle's overall coastal revitalisation project.
The section here at Kingerwood Park with this seawall is the most difficult section, and that's why it's been left to last. It's also the most expensive section.
Meanwhile at Civic Park, work has been ended on an irrigation project, but Council still has more stump grinding to do courtesy of the April storms. Michael Kane, NBN News.
They marched as one in honour of those who made the ultimate sacrifice at Gallipoli in the First World War. The parade was organised by authors John Gillam and Yvonne Fletcher after they discovered the significance of this day, July 31st, when researching their book.
We wrote a book about World War I, and the whole concept of Australia Day popped out of our research, and we thought, what a wonderful idea to bring back for the centenary.
Dressed in period costume, hundreds of students from Thornton Public School joined veterans, RAF personnel and the SES to reenact the events of the first Australia Day.
At home here, we needed something to gel as a nation, and this is done. This happened in every town, every city, every shire of the country. Every person came out to watch a parade like this and then to participate in sports to raise funds for the wounded from Gallipoli.
Well, I think it's about reconnecting with what was going on in 1915 and really appreciating that we live in a great country with fantastic freedoms, and that really has been bought at a big price, and sometimes it's nice just to stop and remember that.
The importance of the occasion not lost on the students either.
We need to remember and respect who those people were.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
The last patrol for a much-loved member of the New South Wales Police Force.
I don't think it's sunk in yet. It's a lot of years gone down the track.
At 71, Owen Smith is New South Wales' oldest serving senior constable. He's clocked up 46 years with the force.
I like to finish my shift out and then start a new life tomorrow.
Once back at Charlestown Station, an impressive gathering had formed.
Very special day and very important day, not only for Owen, but certainly for the New South Wales Police Force, as we certainly say goodbye to one of the best.
Early on, Owen nearly didn't make the thin blue line.
I wanted to join the police force, but my height didn't reach the requirements, only about 5'8", and you had to be about 5'10".
But persistence paid off, and today he was proud as the day he first joined, and there was something strangely similar.
You're wearing the same shirt you did when you joined the academy?
Yeah, it's been washed. I come home from the academy, we put it in mothballs, and the wife dragged it out every now and again to give it a wash and freshen up, and I've got it back on today.
His wife of 47 years just glad he's coming home for good.
Particularly lately now when the drug thing, the ice and all those things, perhaps something might happen one day that he doesn't come home.
But the time had come for Senior Constable Owen Smith to walk out with pride.
I think any police officer that can walk out of the station, finishing their career, are lucky men.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
The time for grieving is over. Knights players have a new mentor, whether they like it or not.
It's a bit different playing with someone and then being coached by someone because he's putting in with you on the field, but when he's the coach, you've got to put in for him.
Players have been put on notice, given 6 weeks to prove their worth.
I think it has to start this weekend, or it's just not going to happen. We've been embarrassed all year, mate. Every game that we lose, we're embarrassed.
2 former Knights will this weekend take part in the biggest game of their careers. Albert Kelly and Josh Manilato will play for Hull KR in the Challenge Cup semi-final against Warrington. The knockout competition is one of the most prestigious in rugby league. In Newcastle and Hunter Rugby Union, Giant Killers Merewether Carlton host Wanderers. The Waratahs are at home to Uni. Hamilton is on the road against the Bulls, while Maitland head to the Bay. The Hunters women are making a run in the Waratah Basketball League playoffs. Last weekend, they sunk defending premiers Hornsby. Tomorrow, they face Bankstown for a place in the grand final.
Numerous coaches through the thing have turned around and called us the pests because we're the type of group that, you never really know what you're going to get out of us.
We definitely have a good shot. We've played really well against Hornsby last weekend. We just pushed the ball, we played really well as a team, and I think we can get it done.
Alison Ebzery did the bulk of the damage. With 14 points, she provided the perfect foil for her heavily guarded teammates. WNBL scouts have already made inquiries.
Look, Ali on last Saturday night was exceptional. There's no doubt that a young lady still learning the craft of the game, but when she realises how good she could be, it could be scary.
Alison's older sister, Katie, is a member of the Opal squad. Naturally, she sought her advice.
She just told me to play my own game. Coming off a good game last weekend, she said that I just have to let things flow, don't get too mentally involved in the players and just, be myself.
The winner of tomorrow's semi will take part in Sunday's grand final.
An amazing opportunity. We'll just see how it pans out from there, and hopefully we get the co-drive at all the co-drive events.
It's a disturbing and confronting scene. These children, just 10 and 11 years of age, fighting during a junior rugby league game at Lambton this morning. A sight that's left one official shaking her head.
It's very disappointing and, we just want kids to be kids.
The behaviour didn't get any better across town. Just 3 hours later at Katara, a referee was forced to abandon an under-17 fixture midway through the first half after he claimed to be verbally threatened by a player. But it wasn't just the on-field antics captured by our cameras. A club official then had the task of moving on a group of onlookers who he claims were provoking players from the sideline. The standoff continued for a further 20 minutes until the group finally dispersed. It comes just 1 week after Cronulla brothers Andrew and David Fafita were accused of abusing and threatening a referee at a junior rugby league ground. Local rugby league officials admit they have to deal with dozens of cases of sideline abuse every weekend, but it's keeping referees in the game, which is becoming another major issue.
The majority of the complaints are from poor sideline behaviour, whether it be parents, supporters, teammates.
We struggle to get referees involved. We struggle to keep them in the game, and the last thing we need is for them to get the treatment that they do.
It seems a new initiative that the Junior Association will introduce at all grounds next weekend can't come quick enough.
With the support of Newcastle Rugby League and Country Rugby League, is that we have a shush round. If you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
This site at Medford was slated for the new Lower Hunter Hospital in 2013, but 2 years later, construction on the project appears no closer. Just this week, the Premier failed to reveal how it would be funded when quizzed during a visit to the Calvary Mater.
What it shows here is that private-public partnerships can work. It has to be all about delivering the best possible care we can. We're working through the final delivery model at Maitland Hospital, but obviously this is a model that can be considered.
Maitland MP Jenny Aitchison says the community deserves answers. She's calling for the state government to produce a detailed construction timeframe and funding model immediately.
You can't promise something for 5 years and still have no clarity on what you're promising, and that's what we're in this situation with.
Ms Aitchison has also criticised the state government for not being transparent with key stakeholders.
This week I was very surprised to hear from the Maitland Hospital Medical Council that they were not aware that the hospital had been reduced to a $400 million hospital. So this was an announcement that the government made in the last weeks before the election in March.
In a statement, Health Minister Gillian Skinner says consultation has been extensive and is ongoing, and that planning continues as the government works to finalise its business case to submit to Treasury. Renee Feder, NBN News. Joe Lawton is a picture of happiness, surrounded by 100 of his closest family and friends to celebrate a century of life. Born and raised in Newcastle, Joe has spent most of his years behind the lens, his passion inspired from an early age.
My mum bought me a projector for Christmas,
and I was so taken up with it, it just used to show flickers, and I love making movies. Then finally I got a movie camera, and I just went into the movie business.
After buying that camera, Joe documented the events happening in Newcastle before and after the Second World War, winning countless accolades along the way. It's a career he recalls with fond memories.
And when you see your production on screen, you're real happy and pleased with it. And not only that, I've met some wonderful friends. A lot of them are here today.
Even now, with 5 children, 9 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren, Joe shows no signs of slowing down.
Maybe tomorrow I'll feel a little bit different, I'll be back to normal, but I still won't feel 100. I've never felt my age really, even the 90s.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
A blunt message to those that doubt his commitment.
I'm here for a reason, and I can play.
Roberts has come under fire from fans in 2015. While he's caught behind a lacklustre pack, glimpses of brilliance have shone through. He's only 24 and believes he has plenty to offer in red and blue.
The people question my pride and my passion for the club, and I just want to show them that I do care, and this is my club and my home. I grew up here, and this is where I want to be, and I just want to give back.
There could be further changes to Danny Badiris' side ahead of tomorrow's clash with the Dragons. Initially named, a foot problem has placed Carlos Tuamavave in doubt.
He's had a bit of a foot problem, but got an MRI yesterday and came clear there's no fracture, so probably just get it injected tomorrow before the game and I'll be sweet.
The Knights had their final team run behind closed doors in Sydney this afternoon.
It just gets us out of the excitement of Sydney just for a little while and helps us to focus on the training that we need to do to prepare ourselves for World Cups.
Big thing is we put the pressure on ourselves, regardless of what the public thinks, we're our hardest taskmasters and we really want to keep aiming for that best performance that we can do. So, we're the ones that drive that and really want to perform well.
Against the run of play, Wanderers would post first points. Tapaki Rahui offloading to Zakatala, who still had plenty of work to do. Billy Coffey extended the lead, a dominant run with a strong fend, and the two Blues were out to an early lead. Dan Kevill was seeing red a short time later. He's alleged to have eye-gouged Michael Dan in this on-the-ground melee. A power play would see Wanderers cross for their third. The Greens eventually hit back through Rapini Mason. Wendell Wilson further narrowed the gap, crashing over from close range. Wanderers struck first after the break, Tanner Felix doing the damage. The Greens remained in touch when Corey Nash sliced through for the home side. With 14 men, Wanderers kept their noses in front. Zakatala linking with Tanner Felix, Tapaki Rahui finishing the job. But they gave the Greens a sniff, slack defence and Rapini Mason crossed under the posts. They were the final points, Wanderers with a narrow win.
true to the name, the issue of development at Boomerang Park is one that keeps coming back. Last week, Port Stephens Council passed a plan to rezone 4.5 hectares for residential development. Now, long-time opponents are calling on the council to reverse the decision, claiming it contradicts its own plan of management.
They need to comply with this plan of management, and everything that's happening in the park at the moment, the playground, the master plan, the planning proposal is all contrary to this plan of management.
The rezoning was supported by all but 2 councillors who claim the mayor is pushing his own political agenda after failing to get a similar plan approved almost a decade ago.
This is really about we didn't get it through in 97, so we want to get it through, or we've got the numbers.
There are also environmental concerns, in particular the removal of 86 trees.
Some of those trees are koala food trees, some of them aren't, but even if they're not koala food trees, they're still habitat for koalas and bird life.
But most of all, residents say they feel like they've been bulldozed.
We've tried to talk to council and negotiate, but we haven't had any genuine community consultation, and we've been left out of the process.
I think that's rubbish. It's been out there for months and months and months, and possibly most of the people objecting to it never use it, never have in the past.
The rezoning still has to be approved by the State Planning Department. Residents say they'll take their plight to the Premier. Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
An $11 million new look for Singleton's Main Street. They've literally painted the town red. There's also new seating, more disabled parking and a reduced speed limit.
What it's already done this morning is look at the traffic and the people that are here. And that's exactly why the council have been thinking about this for a long time.
But for months, this was the reality for John Street retailers, who say they'll be trying to recover from the downturn for some time. Kathy Sipple is employed at the Little Chicken Shop. She lost 10 hours of work per week.
It used to be like 8 girls working here, now there's only 4. As people have left, they didn't replace us, and yeah, we have 2 on a shift instead of 3 now.
But the business is pleased with the work council's done and hopeful the amount of street traffic will get back to where it used to be.
Hoping now that the street's open, that business will start to pick up and get back to normal.
The council understands that it was a disruption for some of the business houses, sure, but for 6 months and what we've got, well worth it.
Among shoppers today, opinion on the new look was mixed.
I like traditional things, I guess. It's taken a long time.
It's great. I think it brings a whole new feel to the town.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
They say a picture paints 1,000 words. But for the likes of Vincent O'Brien, it's worth so much more.
My career was the Air Force. I did 35 years total.
The returned serviceman from Edgeworth is taking part in an ambitious project to document every surviving World War II veteran in Australia, committing their names and faces to history.
They'll have beautiful wartime portraits of themselves, and we'll try and capture that portrait of them with their 20-year-old self.
It's called Reflections. Each portrait taken will be eventually archived at the Australian War Memorial. And as time goes on, those behind the scenes are realising just how crucial their work is.
In fact, we've lost quite a few of them since the portraits have started being taken, or sometimes, unfortunately, even before we get to them.
Trevor Pettit served in the legendary Z Unit, an Allied Special Forces group that, until recently, went largely unrecognised.
Rather interesting. The only thing I'm a bit sorry about, my twin brother, who was served with me the same together, he died 3 years ago.
The Reflections project wraps up at the end of the month. Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
A new coach, new players and new jerseys. Newcastle needed a hero, but it was the Dragons who first made it stick. An all too familiar start from the Knights. That looked set to get worse when Kate Snowden left the contest, but Newcastle hit back. That fired them up. They attacked the Dragons' line, speed creating space and points, much to the relief of the new coach. While the Dragons fumbled, the Spider-Men excelled, showing some superhuman skills of their own. But the second half was a different story. The home side took control. Brother on brother, the tension was obvious, made worse when St George found the line again. Some open park and surprising speed from Tyler Randall reduced the deficit. And Memo almost had a second with a body-twisting act, but the Dragons ran away with it. Some magic from Benji Marshall sealing the result. Samuel Jordan, NBN News. The battle for second, and Pat Brown wasted no time getting Hamilton on the board. That was soon doubled. Matt Swan was handed a chance and he didn't waste it. The home side took no prisoners, both off the ball and on it. The scoreline 3-0 after just 20 minutes. Western settled into the contest with some chances of its own. But the Bears just couldn't hit the target. The second half started with more of the same. Pat Brown couldn't be contained, netting his second. 5 minutes later, it became a hat-trick. Western did eventually get on the scoreboard, but it didn't change the result. At Adamstown, the Buds' finals chances came to an end. The 6-goal rout started courtesy of Luke Remington, linking with John Majorovski. The Jathers were given too much space and Riley McNaughton made the Buds regret it. A poor option at the back saw possession handed over before Joe Wheelhouse showed his experience to coolly slot it away. Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
I had a shocker and took off on it straight away. Took off on a small one and it did nothing, and I was like, oh wow, you really do have to wait for him. So I kind of learnt my lesson and paid off in the end.
It doesn't take much for bushland areas to become as dry as this. And it's exactly what a short, dry, windy spell has done to parts of the Hunter, prompting a warning from the RFS.
This period that we're going through, it's a very good opportunity for people to be aware what's going on in the Blue Mountains and places like that, and to start getting ready for the season.
The region may be sitting above average when it comes to annual rainfall, but it's this time of year when a few extra showers become critical.
A little bit more would be nice leading into September, October, November, just to keep things damp. But if these winds keep up, it will certainly dry out.
Smaller hazard reduction burns have already been completed around Cessnock and Kurri Kurri, with the RFS also targeting areas where there's debris left over from the April storms.
Lots of flood water and lots of flash flood water that pushed a lot of debris around the place. People still have debris in their backyards, and farmers have piles on rural properties.
For more information on how to prepare your property for the bushfire season, visit the Rural Fire Service website. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
It's the big question mark of Newcastle's West End.
The time has come for this site. It's certainly underdeveloped in terms of what's happening in Newcastle. The potential is significant.
Undisclosed legal issues may have pushed back the store's formal sale listing, but that hasn't stopped speculation about its future. Last month, the Premier confirmed the government would consider expanding plans for the new Wickham interchange to include the iconic site.
The plan is there, but again, we want to make sure we get it right. It doesn't mean we can't consider additions or amendments that make sense.
A sentiment echoed by the Property Council.
Parts of this site could be used for things like transport logistics, so car parking, road transport interchanges, more retail space.
It won't just be the government vying for the landmark. Its size and location is likely to spark fierce private interest.
So commercial, retail, residential type uses, and of course anyone acquiring the site would want to be integrated into the government's spending programs.
The site has the potential to become home to Newcastle's tallest building, with current zoning allowing for up to 90 metres. That's 30 stories, or about 10 times the height of the current building. Expressions of interest are expected to be formally called on Wednesday. Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
The photographs date back 100 years to a time when there seemed to be a pub on every corner. And that's not far from the truth. In 1900, well before dozens of licences were cancelled, there were 149 hotels in Newcastle and its surrounds. These images motivated historian Ed Tonks to produce No Bar to Time, a 156-page labour of love.
A prime focus, of course, has been the magnificent photos of Ralph Snowball. We really owe Ralph Snowball a great legacy. He's left us with a great conduit to the past.
There's the Premier Hotel at Broadmeadows, surrounded by floodwater in 1893, now recently overhauled. In contrast, the Prince of Wales looks much the same as it did in the 1920s. Mr Tonk says he's fascinated by pubs, not just due to a love of the odd beer.
They are key elements of our built environment. They've been around for a long time. We may even take them for granted, but yet they do have stories under themselves in terms of who designed them, the significance of the name, how they've changed.
The book acknowledges the historic role of hotels in a community's social fabric.
Also, accommodation was very significant, provision of meals, they had dances, they had boxing contests.
So much more than a watering hole. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. As the average life expectancy for Australians surges past 80, we're seeing more older people challenging their once presumed use-by dates. The 97-year-old toolmaker who refuses to retire. The sprightly filmmaker still getting behind the lens, having just celebrated his 100th birthday.
I've never felt my age really, even in the 90s, but here I am.
The nonagenarian GP who finally hung up her stethoscope just last year. And two tennis aces aged 89 and 90 still serving it up with the best of them. They're all remarkable and proving there's plenty of life well beyond 80. And then there's this lady at 91. She's just won a national poetry competition open to all ages and came third in the international division.
It was a shock, but a delightful surprise. And it restored my confidence in myself.
After some difficult years of heartache, Merle Goldsmith recently rekindled her love of writing poetry and painting. The Armidale great-grandmother is an inspiration. She's also my much-loved Nana.
I'm amazed when people say I'm amazing. Because I feel I'm just me, and I've had the same brain and the same thoughts and feelings for 50 years at least. I think, although I'm 91, I feel about 61 in myself.
She's not keen on the attention, but the success of her latest poem, Full Moon, has put her in the spotlight.
Yet here you are, tantalising my eyelids, imprinting my wall, my mind, with your pale fire.
And she's also challenging misconceptions about ageing.
Now that I was in my 90s, I was expected to be put into a corner in a way, and not someone that needed a lot of care and help, not someone who was taking initiative and being creative.
While genetics and good health obviously play a part, Merle believes remaining mentally active is crucial to ensuring a long and happy life.
Play plenty of music, read plenty of poetry and books, and keep your social contacts going, and serve other people wherever possible. Reach out to others.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Leeson Armour's hit on Cade Snowden left the Newcastle forward with concussion, and the Knights a man short for 68 minutes. While the Dragons forward played a big part in the home side's 22-point win. The match review panel today decided the hit was a Grade 2 careless tackle, but with an early guilty plea, Armour won't miss a game. Jeremy Smith believes the NRL could consider an 18th man for these types of incidents.
They need to look at something because it's certainly a bit unfair when you're losing one of your big forwards and you're left with 3 on the bench.
On a positive note, 2 Knights are still buzzing following their debuts. Nathan Ross bagged a try, while local junior Lachlan Fitzgibbon had a short stint off the bench.
It was all a bit of a blur, that first stint. I had so much adrenaline pumping that I didn't really know what was going off. I came on and then I came off and I just looked back and I was going, where'd that 17 minutes go?
Meanwhile, there's good news for Jared Mullen following foot surgery. Initially, it was thought he could be off his feet for 3 months. He'll return for a check-up on August 11, but could be back running in 8 weeks. With 2 rounds left in the NPL, ladder leaders Edgeworth are within reach of a premiership. Tomorrow night, though, they'll switch focus to a different task.
It's going to be a big stage, so hopefully we can have a good game and hopefully the nerves don't get the better of us. Just go out and play our normal game and have fun.
Insufficient lighting at Edgeworth means the game will be played at Broadmeadow. The last time the Eagles played at Magic Park, they beat the home side 2-1. Despite the massive step up in class, the underdogs will play to their strengths, hoping to cause an upset.
We sort of play a good game in transition, so if we're quick on the break, maybe we can get something, and set piece is another strength of ours, so, who knows.
In positive news, the Eagles' top 2 keepers are back from injury.
Ben Smith's pushed through, he's been getting treatment every day and he'll keep for us. And Jim Fogarty come back through 22s yesterday, so he'll be on the bench.